The 1-2 Football Podcast. The voices of tomorrow, here today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 1-2 Football Podcast. I'm Nathan, and today we are looking back on the biggest talking points from last week's Premier League action. As usual, I'm here with Ollie and Kieran. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm alright. Actually, I'm not alright. I've got, poorly finger, poorly face, toe, everything. I'm actually a disaster. In football terms, I'm also a disaster because that was a shocking display from United. But I can't be the good old, I'm alright this week. It's downhill.
Tough times.
Indeed.
I don't know how I follow that really, because my body's fine, my team are fine. I'm just. What can I say? Oh, minus Thursday night, but that doesn't even count. Premier League, all good, and that's what we're here to talk about. So that's what matters.
I mean, we do have to touch on that terrible performance in midweek, but not yet. We got to start with West Ham United. I mean, they steamrolled Leicester City 4-1. No one expected that. I mean, I thought West Ham would do all right, but not that all right. Very well. I mean, can they repeat the season they had last year?
I think they can. I had them quite high up on my table. I can't remember exactly where I actually put them now, but I put them very high up, the highest out of the three of us. And I thought they'd be in for a good season. David Moyes has got, the platform for a good season. And they're showing that. They're the top goal scorers. They're top of the league. They have the top goal scorer as well in Antonio. So it just all looks like it's going really well. But like we said in the last podcast, it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up once they've got, other competitions to compete in as well, and can they compete on all fronts? But at the minute, they're absolutely smashing it.
Yeah, pretty much echo all of that. I was a bit sceptical just because of how important Jesse Lingard was for them at the second half of last season. I was worrying, whether they'd be able to keep up the goals and assists for sort of like a creative three behind Antonio. But I mean, I was put in my place last night with both Ben Rama and Fornal scoring. Two players who really in front of goal had been a bit goal shy for West Ham. But, now they seem to be kind of coming into their own a little bit. And Antonio, I mean, that story is wonderful as well, breaking West Ham's all-time Premier League goal score record. He used to be a right-back as well, which I just find completely bizarre. I get comparing kind of Lukaku's performance against Arsenal and Antonio's on Monday night against Leicester. They're both very similar players. They can manipulate the ball so well by using their body to turn defenders. If Antonio keeps fit, and they keep a lot of their players fit, they should do really well. But that's kind of where the concern is the squad depth.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, in terms of Antonio, he's fantastic. Probably right now one of the most informed strikers. Technically, if you go by the goal scoring charts, he is the most informed striker in the Premier League after the two games, and has been so reliable for West Ham. And also, he can't be that far off an England shout either. If he stays in this form, there's no way you can kind of keep him down, especially if Watkins has been injured to start the season off. I mean, Calvert-Lewin's doing his best, but Antonio might work his way in. But then if Antonio gets injured, who comes in? Who goes up front? I genuinely don't think they have a backup striker.
They haven't got. They actually. I'm not gonna lie. I figured this out a minute ago. They haven't got anyone. Their entire team, based off the Premier League app, so they could have other players that it doesn't show, but that I imagine not. Their entire team is 24 players. Now, 4 of them are goalkeepers. They have 20 outfield players in their entire first team. 20. Now compare that. I've just done it to 2 other teams. Villa only have 28, so only 4 more, but they only have 2 goalkeepers. So they have 6 other outfield players, which is a big difference. Spurs, obviously a bigger team, more money. They have 38. So in terms of squad depth...
Not too many.
in terms of squad depth, they have nobody. And on the app, their forwards are Antonio, Jared Bowen, Benrahma, and then Yarmolenko. Now, 3 of the 4 of them are playing all the time. So if they get injuries... Yarmolenko's going to have to, step up big time because they have no one. They have absolutely no one. And their midfield, they have a load of defenders. They have 10 defenders. Out of their 20 outfield people, 10 of them are defenders. So their depth is, pretty scarce.
It's an interesting one because they're going to have to act in the transfer window. I mean, obviously Jesse Lingard has been the player they've been linked with a whole lot. Obviously, it makes sense, even if it is sometimes a bit lazy. But he's had such a great spell with them. He's not going to start for Man United, so it makes a lot of sense. But then, surely they know like this. Surely they knew they needed a striker. Surely they've thought about it and they've been in meetings and they've gone, right, we need a striker. And so where has it gone wrong? Is it the owners? The owners at Sullivan and Gold are known for being bad at transfers. While they've got the ones they've done right, they're known for not being the most active and on it set of owners, even though their recent business has been really good. Moyes, I think, has been looking through like West Ham fan reactions, been accused of maybe being a little complacent in the transfer window, kind of a bit old school, maybe not quite, catching up with the new ways people are getting transfers. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But surely they knew this. That's what I can't understand. They knew that they needed a striker, and they've just not acted. And I mean, they've got 2 weeks to do that, and I'm sure they will. But how has that happened?
I think they're probably scared about making the same mistakes. I could be wrong here, but they signed, Hall or whatever his name was for, a lot of money. And then Kieran's laughing. Did I get the name right? Wrong.
No.
What?
Haller.
Hauler. I'm calling him Hauler. This guy's called Hauler. He's not even in the Premier League anymore. Who cares? Anyway, they signed him for, a fair bit of money, if I remember rightly, and he just didn't hit the ground running. And then, his story got even worse by not even being signed up to, Champions League or Europa League, whatever, for Ajax. That's another thing. But, yeah, they just can't seem to get it right in terms of signing the striker. And I think they're really just trying to sort it out and try and figure out who is going to be, worth the outlay of money, because strikers nowadays cost a lot of money. And if they get it wrong again, they can't afford to get it wrong because they're not a club, with stacks of cash. So I think they are just being very safe and precautious around who they've got to sign. But, there's a difference between being safe and then just being too scared to do it. And I think they're just going to have to, get the checkbooks out and sign people, because if they do want to continue this, winning streak and, to have a great season again, and they probably could do with the team as long as they don't get injuries. But, we all saw what happened to Liverpool and teams like that. When you get injuries, it can hit hard. And this team does not have the depth to cope with injuries.
That's the interesting thing, though, is that you mentioned there that, half of the outfield players on the Premier League app are defenders, yet the position where it seems like West Ham are likely to recruit someone is another centre-back, which is amazingly ironic in that, they've been in for Nikola Milenkovic and that kind of fell through. He signed a new contract at Fiorentina. And now it looks like Kurt Zouma could be making the switch across London to West Ham from Chelsea. So the money's clearly there. It's just a question of, it's not very smart recruitment, I don't think, in terms of where it could be end up spent. And you think about last season as well, Mikel Antonio is someone who is unlikely to be fit for the whole season. I think he, not necessarily devastating injuries where you're looking at 3-4 months, I think it's just fatigue for the player in his muscles, just because of how much running he does and the running power that he has. He's going to struggle to play 2 games a week, which is obviously what West Ham are going to have to do this season. They're going to be, their schedule is going to look, Thursday, Sunday or Monday. It's going to be that kind of intensity, and it's going to be travelling. And you look at that and you think they might struggle, but the indicators so far allude to that they're going to be fine. But is it just a question of, kind of how Everton started last season, where they hit the ground running with some new signings, playing well and scoring goals, and then I think they kind of struggled with injuries, with Allen, Decore, James Rodriguez, of course, all spending time on the sidelines, significant time as well, and it kind of just fell apart from there when they realised as well that their depth didn't quite match the level of the starting 11. Here we are talking about how we're going to praise West Ham, and it feels like we've just picked their squad to pieces just because of its lack of depth and quality kind of in and around the team.
We just though, to be honest, we're being realistic, aren't we?
Yeah. They've taken risk before. Look at Thomas Souček, look at Kufal. These are players that no one had heard of really, unless you were proper into European football before they signed, and they've turned out to probably be 2 of their best players. So they clearly have it in their recruitment team, that they can pick out players and they can find them, and they can maybe not even those big names like Haller was and some of the other failed signings that they've had. Just, if they can pick someone out that they've proven capable to, go back to Sparta Prague or wherever they got the players from, because they're clearly producing. for them. So go back to Czech Republic. But we will talk positive about West Ham as well. They were absolutely excellent on Monday, and Ben Rama is really looking like someone that is going to make a big impact for them this season.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I can't really comment on sort of the overall performance. But that guy's come to life. It was meant to be a big signing when they signed him last season, and he didn't really live up to the hype. I think it was sort of settling in to the Premier League, and he looks dangerous this season, doesn't he? He looks like he's going to score a lot of goals, get a lot of assists, and I think that's the reason why a lot of us are popping him in our fantasy teams, because he is stepping up. And let's not get carried away. I know we said we're going to talk about him positively. Let's not get too carried away. It's been 2 game weeks, and it's not been the most challenging. I know Leicester, obviously is a great team, but they're a great team. But let's not get too carried away. But Ben Rama has been an absolute revelation for them this season, and I just don't see him slowing down. I think he's going to be probably the most important player, because, like you said, Antonio will pick up injuries, and I think it's going to rest on Ben Rama to sort of carry that team a little bit going forward. And so, I hope he doesn't get a bit too tired out, and I hope they don't use him a bit like a Pedri at Barcelona, where he just plays non-stop.
Well, from that game as well, I wanted to interrupt your comment there talking about Leicester. They did have a man sent off kind of in the first half, Izzy Perez. Bit of a bad challenge on Fornals, I think it was. So that kind of played into their favour a little bit. But even before the red card, West Ham were on top. They really took it to Leicester. Yeah, Leicester had a good amount of possession, but they didn't look threatening at all. They really struggled. Antonio did a great job kind of allowing the Leicester centre-backs to have space, but closing the passing lanes out to kind of Ndidi and Tielemans, forcing Maddison and Barnes to try and come deep to get the ball, but it just didn't work for them at all. And that's another area as well with the centre-back partnership of Soyuncu and Amati. It's not going to be a desired ideal back two, but obviously injury problems have kind of caused that to happen. I think Leicester have got probably about 6 injuries amongst defenders. So let's not read into it too much with Leicester as well. Obviously, it's a pretty crushing defeat, but we know how good Leicester are, and we know that they will finish 5th. It's just what happens. But you mentioned about Ben Rama there. Obviously, I think he's probably going to get the most acclaim just because of the goals that he's got so far. But I think last season, Jared Bowen was really important when Antonio was injured. He kind of They kind of played a fluid front 3, but you'd often find that Bowen was the one at the arrow point of it, leading it forward. And he picked up a lot of assists and a few goals last season as well. But Fornals is kind of the most interesting one for me, because I remember him in I want to say it was the under-21s European Championships, where he was brilliant with Spain. West Ham picked him up and we're thinking, oh, this is going to be a brilliant signing. And he's shown kind of spells of being that brilliant player that we know he can be. It just now seems he's going to find that consistency, kind of similar to how Ben Rama's hopefully going to be finding it this season as well. And we haven't even spoken about Rice and Souček, because we just know how good they both are. Souček going forward, I mean, you'll struggle to find the kind of defensive midfield pivot that complement each other so well, in that Rice can play that shielding role in front of the back four. Souček's not afraid to get forward and score goals, as we've seen already in the Newcastle game. So just on kind of the precipice of things, their starting 11 is right up there in terms of kind of teams' best 11s in the league. And if I'm honest, as an all-round team, they probably give a couple of the big 6 a run for their money. It's just the depth that's the problem. I mean, who knows, they could get really lucky this season and remain fit, or they could sign some extra attackers kind of in the next week or so. But I do worry for West Ham kind of around Christmas time, when the schedule is so packed, along with those Europa League fixtures. I do think that it's inevitable someone's going to pick up an injury just with that sheer amount of workload. You can say you're a professional footballer, but at the end of the day, your body's kind of the exact same, obviously at a bit more of an advanced level than most, but fatigue and muscle soreness and tiredness and injuries are going to happen. And I do kind of worry for West Ham when they do, especially if they don't sign anyone.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because it could have been a completely different story had they already signed Jesse Lingard, and if they'd got, Tammy Abraham, because they were linked with him, and we would have been sat here going, you know what, they've actually got quite a bit of depth, because they've got Lingard there, they've got Abraham there. Where would they fit into the team right now? Because obviously, like you said, the team is playing so well. So it's just weird how things shape out. So, you know, there's still a couple of days left of the transfer window. So maybe they can pull, you know, some strings and get a bit of players in there to add that depth. And who knows, they could actually slot into that starting 11, and players like Fornals maybe will drop to the bench or something like that. But I mean, it'll be hard to see that with the form that they're currently in.
I mean, we spoke about depth and teams with a lot of depth. Moving on to the next talking point, I mean, Tottenham Hotspur are a team with a ton of players, so many players that they can't even sign anymore because they've just got too many. So, but they've won both their league games so far, 2 1-0 wins, hard fought, but ultimately weirdly deserved. That's kind of what I've got from watching Tottenham. I don't know about you, Ollie, especially that Man City game, kind of under pressure for a lot of it, but this kind of deserving the win due to their counter-attack and things like that.
It's Nuno. It's literally classic Nuno getting his teams really, you know, tactically drilled and, you know, quite strong, and like maybe they look under pressure but they still pull it off. And I was, you know, advocate for Nuno when he was at Wolves, and I really wanted him, you know, when he was linked with Man United and it was a bit up in the air with what would happen with Ollie. We wanted him to go there, and now he's gone to Spurs, and I think, yeah, okay, he wasn't clearly top of their list of managers, but I think he should have been with the way that they've started this season. And like I say, it's classic Nuno. He's get his teams tactically and defensively very strong, and then they can sit there, they can take the pressure, and then they break and they counter-attack. And I'm going to look at without Kane right now. Yeah, okay, obviously every team would be better with Kane. But right now, the thing they've got up front is pace. And every single one of them 3 up front, you know, Bergwijn, you know, Son, they've all got pace and they're all attacking, and, you know, they can just break on anyone. And I think any team would hate to have that front 3, and the pace of that front 3, especially running at them, no one wants that, and teams are finding that hard to handle. And yeah, I'm excited to see where Spurs actually finish this season, especially under Nuno, because right now they look a big threat.
I'm sure there's one person that's excited more than most.
I'm just soaking it all in, all this praise, getting a good feel of it before it goes horribly wrong. Yeah, I mean, I watched the Wolves game. It wasn't comfortable, but it almost was at the same time. Wolves dominated possession, had the more shots, more passes in our half, more passes in the box, more touches in the box. But really, the only chance that springs to mind, which was a clear-cut opportunity missed, was the one that fell to Adama Traore, which was saved by Lloris. So, and kind of similar to Man City, there wasn't many clear-cut opportunities. So although, you know, we are allowing teams to attack us, it almost feels like, you know, we can withstand it. You know, that was a main criticism of Jose last season, was once we took the lead, literally in the Wolves game, Tanguy and Ndombele scored after about 50 seconds, and we sat back for the whole game, and eventually Wolves equalised. And I thought, you know, we were going to be onto the same outcome here, but obviously we managed to hold on for the 3 points. So it's looking pretty good so far. I'm liking seeing Dele Alli in a kind of newer, deeper role. I think he's developed massively so far in that, after playing it, I think, most of the pre-season games. It seems like Nuno really likes him in that position as well, playing as kind of the left of a midfield 3 in a 4-3-3 when Spurs are defending, but then pushing up into a kind of attacking midfield role when we're attacking, obviously, with the ball. So that's exciting to see. I think I slightly do disagree with you, Ollie, in that you say Kane, obviously Spurs without Kane at the moment look very good on the counter-attack. I think we'd probably be better with Kane on the counter-attack, because what we did so well last season was the minute we'd go forward, right, Kane's the out ball. If you pass to Kane, he'll either win a free kick or manipulate the ball around someone. And then his passing ability last season was showcased just how good it was. So there were certain moments in the game against Wolves where when Kane came on for Son, we had that kind of vocal point to build off of if we needed to for counter-attacks. And with Son possibly injured, I don't actually know the extent of it, but he went down in the warm-up before the Wolves game and obviously came off. I don't think Son's come off many times before the end of the game. He's just someone you want to have on the pitch because of his energy and running power. Obviously, that was lacking slightly in the second half, I think. So, I mean, I'd hope there's nothing serious there, but it's kind of looking good. And man, I really want Steven Bergwijn to score a goal, though, because he's doing everything but that. His defensive work rate is brilliant. The piece of skill he produced against Wolves was superb. I just want him to score, because I think when he does score, we'll see the very best of him.
Yeah, I mean, Spurs look great, and especially in attack, so impressive. Bergwijn as well, someone that possibly flattered to deceive a little bit last year. Again, just showing that if you give these players a bit of time, that they can come through and deliver. And just that final thing that Bergwijn needs to do. I mean, Lucas as well. I think someone that goes under the radar with Spurs a lot, is still a very good player, very important player if you look at kind of their recent history and right now. I mean, and also Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez. I mean, who'd have thought that would have been a partnership that's kept 2 clean sheets?
I didn't see that coming. I'd say that for sure.
And I mean, watching Sanchez's performance against Wolves, it was a surprise that they still managed to keep the clean sheet. But regardless, Eric Dyer was brilliant again, and he kind of does this. I feel like Dyer, the first few games, actually he's not that bad, and then for some reason it soaks. But this might be a different season for Eric Dyer, because there is clearly a player there. Because there's a reason why he plays for Tottenham Hotspur. There's a reason why Southgate rates him highly and used to call him up for the England squad. Obviously, it became to a point where he wasn't doing well enough to earn that. But there has to be a player there. And alongside someone like Tanganga, and I mean, I'm not sure about Reguilon in terms of defensively. He's obviously very capable there, but especially Tanganga on the right. There must be that bit more stability when you're a Spurs centre back, knowing, right, this guy can defend very well. We've got him next to us. You have Højbjerg in front. You've got Skip in front of you, who are also great at ball-winning centre midfielders, and they like to win the ball back and play it forward. So it kind of alleviates a little bit of pressure on that Spurs defence. Yeah,
I think with the defence as well, Eric Dyer probably feels comfortable there because he's surrounded by 3 very pacey defenders. We know Sanchez has got a bit about him. Tanganga's running power is brilliant, and Reguilon's speed is pretty impressive. So it probably fills him with a lot of confidence. And I'd imagine having Højbjerg in front of him as well. I mean, you probably can't ask for many better to kind of shield the back four in the role and the way that he does it. I'm just kind of not worried, but I do kind of wonder how kind of the new signings are going to be blended in, because obviously of what happened. I didn't want to mention it, but obviously it happened on Thursday night against Pacos de Ferreira, where we lost after changing the entire team. I think Nuno's kind of realised now that, you know, there's a considerable level between our first team and maybe the fringe players, and also that you kind of can't just go from beating the Premier League champions on the weekend to changing the entire team. A lot of players who haven't played together before, and just expect them to turn up, especially when you've got Harry Winks in the team. It's probably not going to happen, and unfortunately now we're going to have to bring out some bigger players in the hope that we can win that second leg. But away from that, Premier League's going great. You know, Man City and Wolves, I mean, that's not an ideal start. Watford up next, so I'd imagine we're probably going to lose that about 4-0, just judging by the fact that surprisingly we've managed to beat Man City and Wolves. But I mean, who knows? And clearly there's still some stuff going on in the transfer window for Spurs, so it's looking good so far. It was looking good last season, and we all know what happened there. I got so tempted by it that, you know,
you have 2 easy games next, so that should be 6 points. You would think that would not be a bad start, would it? You know, 12 points from, you know, your first 4 games or whatever. So, but no, I just want to quickly touch. You know, I've not watched massive amount of Spurs, but for me, everyone's shocked about Dyer, and I feel like maybe we shouldn't have been shocked. Because I feel like Nuno's found his Connor Cody in Dyer here, that sort of robust centre-back that he loves to have in that team. Just, you know, give a bit of muscle and just a bit, you know, a commanding centre-back, not necessarily the best centre-back in the world, by no means, neither of them, but it's just Nuno's typical centre-back, and having someone robust, you know, that sort of bold cut on his head, just there to win that ball. Do you know what I mean? So I think maybe, you know, Dyer will shine a bit under Nuno, because, like I said, he does seem to be his Connor Cody in Spurs.
Yeah, and to be fair, Dyer, that's how he stayed so long, and an incredibly well-liked figure across all the teams he's in. But if reports are true, you know, he seems to be someone that connects well with his teammates, can obviously speak different languages as well. So, I mean, he could be a real leader for Spurs. We will touch quickly back on that Pacos de Ferreira defeat, because it was rather funny, but also depressing to watch, because, you know, Spurs offered nothing in this game. And it was a bit concerning, I think. You know, the likes of Lo Celso, and you can always say this is the first game they've played. Lo Celso and Winks look so off it in that. And I understand Lo Celso's a better player than the one game on Thursday, but there has to be a concern there. And Romero looked a bit off it as well, but he was injured, to be fair, coming in. There's slight concerns that Spurs still need to do so much in that transfer window. I mean, let's say Dyer and Romero get injured, and then you're left with Sanchez and Carter Vickers at the back. You know, you get a few midfield injuries, and Harry Winks has to start playing. It could become a problem. So I think that now is the onus on Partici and the team to just make some signings to make sure that doesn't happen again, and Spurs aren't in any danger.
I think we need to also have some outgoings.
Oh yeah, you can't make any signings.
There's a player, even if we could, I think there's players that that have been stealing a living really at the club for a while now, and will put in one in every 5 good performances, or haven't reached their potential that we've seen. And we need to get rid of players who quite clearly don't want to play for the club. That was what was so intriguing for me about Romero and Galini and Brian Gill was, oh wow, these players actually want to play for this team. Wow, that's something, because I think we've had too many players recently who quite frankly just don't give a toss, and they're there to pick up a paycheck at the end of the week, and they might produce something well, but the passion and things like that is kind of lacking. So you need to get players for a start that clearly want to play for the club, and get rid of some players that really don't. And kind of the one that springs to mind is obviously with Sergio Aurier and Moussa Sissoko looking like they're reaching the end of their time at Spurs, is what's going to happen with Tanguy and Ndombele, which I've soured on recently, because if he has asked to leave, he's had 4 managers, he's got this high fee, we've seen snippets of what he can do, but it seems like he's going to throw a tantrum because 2 of his friends are leaving. I just think that's a bit pathetic, if I'm honest. So I mean, I would rather he just left. I know we're going to get a cut price for selling him, but I think it's a waste of time to have players at the club who clearly don't want to be there. And you can say what you want about that, obviously, with Harry Kane and the situation there, but it's clear that Ndombele probably doesn't want to be at Spurs.
Harry Kane has minutes in the bank, doesn't he, at Spurs? He has he's he has wanted to be there for a long time. So I mean, I get that. I mean, that was weird. I don't know about you, Ollie, but when you think about someone that has demanded to leave and has been quite public with the fact that he doesn't necessarily want to be at Spurs, in Harry Kane, got a very warm ovation by the Spurs fans. They you're one of our own and all of that. Does that surprise you? And where do you think Harry Kane will be come the end of this window?
I'm in 2 minds with it, and it depends on what's the truth and what isn't. So I know he's got a contract and everything like that, but if I was a player and you had obviously with your chairman and you had a gentleman's agreement and they went, yeah, look, we'll allow you to go. Now, yeah, okay, your contract is binding. That's just talk. But you kind of have a bond. You've been there for so long. You're an iconic player at that club, and you think you would be allowed to leave if you wanted to leave. And if you've said to the chairman and they said yes to go, I can understand his tantrum and I can understand his reasonings for being, disappointed in the club. And yeah, okay, professionalism comes into it. But if he wants to go and they don't look like they're going to do it, force to move, you've got to do certain things. Is it the right way around it? I don't know, but I can side with him in that regard. If there was no gentleman's agreement and he just for some reason thought there was in his head and there was no real discussions behind the scenes and he's throwing his tantrum, then it's wrong. And I think it's a bit, pathetic. But like we said, we don't know what's actually happening. A lot of mixed reports, so it'll be hard. But, in terms of the fans love Kane. Kane is, iconic player for Spurs now, and, he always will be, I imagine, for a long time to come, whether he's there or not. And the fans want to show him love. By him going out there on that pitch and everyone just, slagging him off and booing him, that's not going to make him want to stay. So I think, the fans probably did the right thing with giving him, a good ovation when he came out. And yeah, whether he's trying to force move or not, the fans are going to be loyal to him, I think, because, he's been so loyal to them for so many years when, he probably could have gone. And, maybe he should have gone for his own career. So, yeah, I'm not really that shocked. But in terms of what, in my opinion, what he's doing is right or wrong, it's a fine line between if there was, an actual proper gentleman's agreement or if it was just a bit of a side talk.
And sort of to round off on Spurs, we know they need depth, and there's the transfer window, still 2 weeks left. Kieran, if you could give us maybe 2 or 3 players that you want Spurs to sign, plea to Daniel Levy through this, who do you want Spurs to bring in to round off the transfer window?
Just like Mbappe, Haaland.
Realistic, of course.
I'm trying to think of. Obviously, there's you've got your players that you'd want to sign, but realistically, in terms of kind of who we've been linked with, well, obviously there has been a lot of players we've been linked with. Adama Traore is an interesting one because there's no doubt he's got ability. It's just I don't quite think he's the type of player that we need. You know, I think him and Lucas Moura are somewhat similar in terms of how they play. Obviously not in physique. But I would find that an interesting signing. I've seen a lot of people say that, you know, Spurs kind of need people that in the midfield that can move the play on. And then I wouldn't be against Traore, to be honest. I just wonder about, you know, firstly, if we can spend that money better elsewhere, or if we can spend it on maybe players that are a bit cheaper. You know, Premier League players are always going to be more expensive. You know, I think you're looking at around 40 million. Nandez is one from Cagliari, kind of an attacking midfield player who I would like to see. Pretty highly rated there. I know that kind of talks for that have stalled slightly, but it could be one that we kind of need in that we still haven't replaced Eriksen really. So that would be nice. A centre back again as well, of course, would be nice. Milenkovic is probably out of the question now, so I mean I'm not quite sure where we go from there. Tomiyasu is one we've been linked.
Zoom has been kind of the talk that I've seen.
Yeah, there's one.
I mean,
there's a few
was offered in the Kane deal.
Yeah, he was never gonna go for that. Let's be honest. Neither was Levy. A centre back though would be nice. Don't quite know who. I mean, Brian Gill was literally, and Gallini was, in the matter of 2 days. Oh, we're linked. Oh, we've signed them. Obviously, Romero was about 14 years, but you know, hopefully we can just bring someone in that brings that bit of depth. Defensively, backup striker, of course, would be nice, and then kind of a creative player who would play in that role and give us a bit more depth there when, you know, games against like Pacos de Ferreira, you can play them and trust them to do well. Alternatively, there's the thinking process that Son and Kane are going to be played as, you know, a straight kind of front two, kind of similar to Jose if Traore was, say, to be brought in. That would kind of mean Dele Alli's role is a miss, but I'm not quite sure what's going on in those meetings. But at the moment it's working, so I'd kind of keep the similar shape. So I don't think Traore is maybe the best recruitment idea, but backup striker, a creative midfielder, and another centre-back. Names, there's plenty, but that's the kind of positions I'd want us to cover.
Right, so going from a fan that is excited about his team going for a great performance on Sunday at 2 o'clock to another fan who's not so happy about his team's performance at Sunday at 2 o'clock. Ollie, Man United, what happened?
Well, we didn't win. That's what happened, really. It's a shockingly crap performance. And I honestly think, you know, a big factor was the fans. The fact that, you know, we're so used to turning up to away games with no fans, and, you know, we're now drawn top, you know, in Premier League history for the amount of ones we would go without losing with Arsenal. And we turned up and there were fans, and we weren't expecting that for some reason, and, you know, we couldn't deal with it. I mean, before it, you know, everyone knows I'm a bit of a stat guy. So here's a couple. So from the opening weekend or opening 2 game weeks from last season when there was no fans, there were 11 away wins compared to the first 2 game weeks of this season where there was only 5. So more than double last year. And I think that's proven with the fact in Man United, and, you know, someone that was so happy to turn up and just, you know, win away from home and, you know, spoil what should be a good home win for the opposition. And last season, and now we can't do it. We seem to struggle, and I mean, it's been 1 game, I know, but we seem to struggle with that. And the fans, you can hear them, you know, they were booing Greenwood for what they thought was a dive, which I didn't think was a dive. You know, he got a hand in the face or whatever, so it wasn't a dive. But whenever he seemed to get on the ball, he seemed a bit nervous and a bit anxious, and that was sort of the trend for the entire game. We just couldn't deal with the pressure of fans back in the stadiums. And, you know, everyone knew that was going to be something that would affect United and affect everyone really, but United especially, because Ollie said it in a press conference, I'm pretty sure, either last week or the week before, which was like, last season we could go 1-0 down and we could come back. He went, you can't do that with fans. When you go 1-0 down away from home, the fans are going to be roaring for the home team, and it's harder to get back. And, you know, we proved it. And, you know, we went 1-0 down, and I was thinking, oh, please, Solskjaer, be wrong with what you said. And it was kind of wrong. You know, we got one back, and, you know, but really, we probably should have lost that game, to be honest. It was an awful performance, and I thought defensively we were pretty open. You know, midfield we weren't great. Matic, oh man, what was he doing? It just was not a good performance at all. And Martial, was he even on that pitch? Did he touch that ball? Did he do anything? You know, I know he's bold and he should probably stand out because the light probably reflected off him, but it just wasn't. I could see nothing. The only thing shining in that performance for him was his head. It was just a shocking performance all round, and I was looking forward to seeing Sancho starting. Where was he? Why is he not starting? You know, I thought Varane might have even got in there because, you know, he's a World Cup winner. He had a whole week to train. He didn't. Just was not good. But for me, the midfield, where's Donny van der Beek? He had a great pre-season. You know, everyone was saying about how he's gone on, you know, a fitness regime and he's got more muscular, and still Matic is in there. And, you know, he's a great player, but he just doesn't seem to have the legs. And, you know, Scott McTominay was like injured, and he still brought him on instead of Donny van der Beek. And, you know, McTominay scored goals last season. Everyone saw that, but he's not a clinical finisher. He's not going to, you know, he's more of a defensive player, but also got that attacking element. But when you need a goal, when you need to score and you want to win, you bring on McTominay. It just seems weird. I thought Donny van der Beek would be a shoo-in for coming in that place. You know, the creative spark that he had at Ajax, and United just didn't. Solskjaer didn't bring him on, and United just weren't at the races all game. And to be honest, I kind of wish we lost, so that, you know, we could look back and think, you know, one win, one loss. Yeah, we need to up this, because I didn't watch the first game, and, you know, because I was away, and I watched the second game. I was really hopeful, but it just didn't go to plan. And, you know, the fans, I think, had a massive thing to do with that. And I also think Southampton just wanted to get, you know, one back on us. You know, we came from behind in the first game last season, and then we battered them 9-0, and they clearly had that fire in their belly, and the fans did as well, to really, you know, equal that playing field and, you know, really ruin the parade. And well, they did it superbly, let's just say that. Yeah, sorry about
it's
my
weird. No, it's fine. We've talked about depth all episode. It's kind of that's been the main topic, really, the team's depth and so on and so forth. But you could see a real flaw in that Man United team, and it was in that midfield. It was in that holding position. You know, Matic was a great player and still is a very capable player, but he's not got it in the Premier League in terms of playing at that intensity and teams that are going to come at you, and especially when your protection's Fred, who really had an off game that day. He's obviously Fred's not.
He was the own goal. He had a bad game.
Yeah, he did.
Bad game.
But yeah, he had a big off day, and you could see in the midfield they just didn't look good. And I mean, there's been talk about Camavinga, and there's been talk about, you know, I don't know, Asao as well. But I mean, is he really the type of midfielder they need? It's a tough one, because I mean, and Van der Beek's just sat there. I mean, he can't have been an Ole signing, because Ole does not rate him at all. Like, there's no way you can see this and think that Ole rates Van der Beek in any shape or form. So why don't Man United cut their losses and let him go and bring in someone that is going to be a holding midfielder? And that, I mean, a move that benefits both the Van der Beek and Man United, and it allows Man United to bring in a holding midfielder. I mean, Rice currently not very happy at Man United. Not Man United, at West Ham.
Who will
Neves as well. Basuma.
You're naming all these players, and yeah, they're all great players, but I don't want Man United to willingly buy players. I would love to see, you know, Rice there. I wasn't as big as advocate, but, you know, the Euros really changed my mind on that. And Neves were being linked with him. I don't want Camavinga. You know, I don't. Leave the presentation. I don't want him. I don't want him. He said he wants to go to Spain. I don't want him. We don't need any more players. I said that a couple of times back when we were doing the transfer one, that, you know, United kind of ruled him out, and I think we still have. I think he would be a Man United player now, because they know the price they need to pay. Neves is someone that I would, you know, I'd be open to seeing. But for me, we have so many options in that team, and good options as well. You know, Paul Pogba will more than likely go back into the central midfield position when we get, you know, Rashford and Sancho and everyone like that back. And And then, like we said, Donny van der Beek is there. He's crying out to be put in. He didn't have the best of seasons last season. We didn't see much of him. But, we can't really judge him just yet because despite him being there a whole season, I honestly can't tell you how he plays because I haven't really seen him play. He came on, obviously, in the first game against, Palace last season, and he's got a goal. And I thought, it's going to be good. And I watched that game just because I wanted to see him play. And, we did okay when he came on a sub, and he hasn't really been going for him yet. But I'm just begging for him to, get some game time because we have talent in that. And I know a lot of people don't like McFred, that partnership with McFred, but I quite like it. Yeah, okay, I don't think you're going to win the Champions League with it. But I think we need to, stay with it because, right now, money-wise, I don't think we necessarily have the funds to spend on Rice and stuff like that right now, especially after the signing of Ryan Sancho. So everyone's saying, go in the market quickly. Don't panic buy. Don't. We have the talent there. Pogba will go back in there. McTominay and Fred have shown you that when they play, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I'm a massive advocate for McTominay. And Fred last season was, he actually had a very good season. A lot of people can pick out his flaws, his off game here and there, but on the whole, he had a good season. And, we have the youth there. Like we said, we've got Donny van der Beek. We also have the use of Hannibal. I know he's a bit more of a playmaker. He's not really that defensive midfielder. But if you can get Pogba in there, who can, he can play in that holding midfield role. Not necessarily his best position, but he can play there. Bringing Hannibal, we know he's meant to be one of the best upcoming stars anyway. I know Garner's just gone out on loan, but maybe, he's on a 6-month loan, I'm pretty sure. Ollie said in his press conference so that he can recall him back in January if we need him there. So we have so much talent. Money isn't always the answer. And right now, shock for me because I'm always loving to see new signings, but we have such depth there. We just need to try it instead of bringing in the same older players. No offence to Matic, but, he's not getting any younger. So bring in the youth players, make them make mistakes, especially in games where, we're going to be rubbish anyway with Matic. Bring them in, let them make mistakes, let them grow, get them chance in the Premier League because loan them out into the Championship, it works. But when you've got players that are 20, 21 going back in the Championship, nowadays you're seeing all these players breaking into the first team, Greenwood, Saka at Arsenal, Smith Rowe. These youngsters need Premier League time, and when you're playing Matic, you might as well put someone like Hannibal in.
Yeah. I still think you need a defensive midfielder. I think you desperately need one, and Sunday highlighted that for me. I'm probably the opposite of you in that Meg-Fred partnership. I think it's good, but that's probably about as far as it goes. I'm going to use Tottenham's comparison here of signing Højbjerg because the minute we signed him, all those problems of just having a serious lack of anyone who can play in that role. Winks and Sissoko is a bit of a downgrade on McTominay and Fred, but it was that kind of similar partnership where neither are defensive midfielders, and whoever the manager is just hoping that, I haven't got one, but maybe if I have two here, that will help. It just doesn't really work for me. I think they both probably have a tendency to get caught at times, either too far forward or kind of in terms of screening the back four. I think that if you get someone there, I'd even argue that signing a proper defensive midfielder was probably more important than bringing in another winger, obviously in Sancho, and another centre-back in Varane. I mean, you may disagree, but I think that Man United team is crying out for a top-quality kind of world-class DM. And then, we say in our predictions, and you say about winning the Champions League there, I think if you bring in someone like Rice, Yves Bissouma is sitting at Brighton, that player, the ceiling on that player is incredible. If he's doing the kind of things for Brighton that he's doing now, I mean, I can only imagine him in what would be a really strong United team. I mean, I'd love to see him at a higher level than currently with Brighton. And I think if you do bring in someone like that, we'll be including United in the conversations for the title when we said about Chelsea and City. I really do. And kind of the same with the Champions League, to be honest. Considering the level of talent you have in the team, I just think McFred is not going to win you those trophies that you want.
I can see the people's views and why they think that, and I agree. We're not going to win, the big trophies with that partnership in midfield. I'm not going to argue with that. But for me, I think United's whole outlook right now is definitely, next season, we want to spend and we want to bring in a striker. And I think right now they're definitely focusing on, Haaland and someone else maybe up front. And so they're thinking money-wise, what can they afford and the depth they've got? And I think they're doing the same as us right now. And we're looking at the depth in Man United midfield. And to be fair, it's not world-class depth. but they've got depth, whether that be the first team or the youth. And so I think, I'm not going to argue. If they were to sign Rice tomorrow or Bissouma, I'd love it. Obviously I'd enjoy that. It would really strengthen that midfield. But for me, I think they're looking to get, Haaland for whatever, 70, 65 million pounds, whatever it is, in January, I think it can be now, or just sign him in January to come in the summer. And I think that's going to definitely be their preference. Because let's be honest, if United sign Rice tomorrow and then we don't have the funds to sign Haaland, I would be fuming. No offence, Rice is great, but Haaland's going to change that team if we can get him, that is, or anyone like that. So, yeah, we do need a CDM, but for me, the depth, get my words out, the depth is there, whereas up front, I think we need that person in the box, and I've been saying this for 2 seasons now. When we counter-attack, when we don't have Cavani up there in that position, the box, there is no one in there. We see it time and time again with Martial. He cannot play centre forward for us because he's not in the box. He's in no man's land. So for me, CDM obviously has to be a priority. But if we can get someone like Haaland, then I definitely think that's probably got to be where we need to focus more, because Haaland, Rice, it's a no-brainer for me. And if we spend money this window on a CDM and then we get outbid for Haaland when we could have got him, I'd cry. I honestly would.
Greenwood's role that he kind of grows into as the main number 9 for Man United, because we've seen how good of a finisher he can be, and he's still 19, 20. So I mean,
he
if that was the scenario,
his future definitely is going to be, that the head of that front three.
Haaland stunt his progress then, because I've seen a lot of people say that Ollie's doing a great job playing him, but the fact that he's going from left to striker to right to playing with a front 2 behind, could he become one of those players who doesn't realise his potential in one particular position, which I think is kind of the main striker? Would bringing in someone like Haaland, undoubtedly very, very talented striker, would that kind of stop Greenwood's progress if you have to push?
Yeah, of course it will. Any striker you bring in to put in a position where Greenwood probably would thrive is going to halt that progress. You see Cavani's coming in, he's not at the level of Haaland, but he's probably halting his progress because, he's playing the position where Greenwood probably should play. But for me, you can say we've got a lot of depth. We've got Amidala in there and stuff like that. You've got James. But for me, Rashford, maybe it's the injury. Maybe he comes back a whole new player, but Greenwood's the better shout out on the wing. We brought Sancho in. Sancho's going to play out wide. And if you're saying not Haaland and you're going to play Greenwood up front, then we're going to need another world-class winger, because we need someone else up there, in my opinion. Now, I think if you're looking at Haaland, you can't miss that opportunity. And there's no person out there that can play on wide to the quality and for the money that you could sign Haaland. So for me, I'd take that risk of playing Greenwood out wide and put Haaland up there, because it's just, you can't miss that opportunity. And I agree, obviously it'll be detrimental to the growth of Greenwood in that position, but Greenwood's amazing. He's outstanding out wide, and Haaland's not going to play every single game. And I know Haaland is young, so you can't turn around and say, oh, well, when he retires, Greenwood will be there, because they're very similar ages, freakishly. So, yeah, but for me, you can't miss out on Haaland. And so Greenwood's just going to have to, grow with Haaland there.
Yeah, it's not a bad person. Not a bad person to work with in Haaland for Greenwood. I mean, quick word on Bissouma. I mean, I just cannot believe the top 6 have given up on him. I don't know what the price tag was, but watching him against Watford, I mean, the price tag probably doesn't seem enough.
I think
for someone 45. I can't believe no one has gone for that. Like, I'll go to John Henry's house now and ask him why have we not signed Bissouma? He's such a good player. I'm going to Brighton. Pardon? You
not think it could be the player? All these teams are interested in him. This price tag, I'm pretty sure, was around £45 million because Brighton needed to raise funds.
I can't see how he wouldn't turn it. He'd turn it. Maybe they got a dodgy agent, but I think it was a lot of talk and not a lot of actual doing. I don't think there was a lot of bids put in. I think Arsenal were trying to lowball a lot of that time, and Arsenal could kill for a player like Bissouma in that team.
I'd have taken White for them.
Yeah, I'd have taken Bissouma, and I mean, I'm going Brighton on Saturday against Everton. I just can't wait to see him play him in real life. And he's such a good player. And 24. I mean, the ceiling is there. He's approaching his prime. So I mean, not just Manchester United, but I think any club, to be honest, any elite club, maybe aside from PSG, should be looking at him at least. And next season, the price tag's going to go up. because he's putting in them level of performances. As long as he keeps it going and Brighton keep moving the way that price tag is going to go up. So this could be an opportunity missed for any club. But I just want to also circle back to Southampton, because obviously Man United did draw to a team. They didn't just play by themselves. Southampton were quite good. Adam Armstrong probably should have won them the game, but looked like a threat up front. Maybe he is going to be sort of the Ings replacement that everyone expected to be. But kind of the player that stood out to me and a lot of people, I think he won man of the match as well, was Livramento on right back. 18 years old, from Chelsea, signed for I thought he was on loan. Signed for 5 million, a 25 million buyback clause. Which,
Chelsea,
to be honest,
yeah, just on because you mentioned the buyback clause there. Chelsea are so smart with that. Somehow they've managed kind of a near net profit from their spending this season because of those deals that they're doing with players. Like, oh, but we can have him back then. I just think the business that team are doing is incredible.
He is and just look at the confidence 18-year-olds against Manchester United to take the game to them from right back. And I mean, also Perard on the other side was also very good, but Livramento stole the show. And I mean, 18 years old, what a ceiling he has. I mean, it's not like England need any more right backs, but here we are.
His pace was lightning quick. I can remember when he broke and, he ran, he got past, and I'm pretty sure he ended up falling over after releasing the ball. But, it makes me want to cry. He's an 18-year-old doing that, and he's not really played in the Premier League before, and it was as much as I can be disappointed with Man United's display. Fair to Southampton, I know you guys are pretty sure had them to go down or whatever.
I had them just about to stay up.
Yeah, I think they could have a good season. I mean, I wasn't really keeping up to date on their transfers and stuff like that, but looks like they've done smart business. Armstrong and fullbacks.
That it's more the outgoings that will hurt them. And I thought, I mean, Ward-Prowse signing a new contract is so important, because if he'd left, I'd have backed Norwich to finish above them. That's how confident I would have been. And Norwich always get relegated. So, I mean, him staying is huge, and the recruitment they have done is very smart considering the players that they've lost. But that's Southampton, isn't it? Lallana, Mane, Wanyama, Van Dijk, all moved on to better things. Luke Shaw, but they've been able to replace all these players, So I don't maybe doubt them doing it again. And probably if I could go back, I would probably have Southampton to stay up, maybe just about, but I'm looking at certain teams' performances and thinking, oh, you might be in trouble, you might be, and you're probably safe. But I'd say probably now, judging off this, if Adam Armstrong can consistently find the back of the net, they'll stay up, because I feel like I say this often. If you've got a goal scorer, you're not going to get relegated.
As long as he can, convert the opportunities that he had against Manchester United, then I think he will be, a quality striker. But I don't think we can necessarily judge Manchester United and Southampton. I know I had a massive rant at Man United, but I don't think
that's what we've just been doing.
I don't think we can really judge either team completely and wholeheartedly on this one performance. The last two games were, crazy in the fixture, and this, with a 9-0, and then obviously the comeback with Cavani coming on. And I think Southampton had a lot of, something they needed to get out there, and they needed to, go back and get a win against Man United and put them in their place a little bit and say, look, you come back, you ruined our sort of times so many times in the last season. And so I think, Southampton next week will be a completely different performance. If not, please surprise me, but I kind of don't want to be surprised, because my Uncle Ray will not let that down. All Adam was in my ear. I've ignored him. I've actually nearly ignored him for like 4 days, I think, or whatever. He's a Southampton fan, But yeah, no, I don't think we can necessarily judge them completely, because, like I said, that the history from last season, I'm pretty sure they need to get one over on Man United.
And that wraps up the 1-2 Football podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out on social media at either 1-2 Football or 1-2 Football UK, and also take a look at 12football.com for the latest written pieces from our growing list of contributors from around the world. We'll be back next week.